So I was asked to tell the story of how I seem to have managed to kick cancer. I've had follicular non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, or at least that I've known of, for a little over 10 years. I'll tell you how I first found out a couple weeks before Christmas. I think it was around the 15th, actually, so about a week and a half before Christmas in 2015. I'd been having a lot of trouble walking for a while, so I lurched into the hospital, and luckily the doctor there said to me, I know your arthritis could cause this, but I've got a hunch. Do you mind if I admit you and send you for an emergency MRI? So that's what we did. And when I got back from the MRI in another city, there was a doctor waiting for me at my local hospital, and he told me, "You're not going to believe this, but not only do you have that mess of arthritis, I had a fist-sized arthritic growth at the base of my neck that we knew was wrapped in all the nerves there. We assumed that's what had been causing my mobility problems and extreme pain for so many years, because I'd been in pain for over 10 years. Anyhow, he said, but you have tumors wrapped around your spinal cord inside of your spinal column, and the reason you're having trouble walking is because you're paralyzed." I said, "What?" I said, "But I'm walking." He said, "I know." He said, "You're not walking well, but you're paralyzed." So he said, "I have an oncologist and a neurosurgeon waiting for you at another city, and there's an ambulance on the way that'll take you up there, and they'll see if they can help you." So, fast forward, up I went and spent a week there. They ran me through every machine they had, and I guess within the first couple of days, the neurosurgeon told me that they thought if I didn't go on life support within the next couple of days, that I would be dead before Christmas. I refused the life support. I already knew I didn't want that. I'd actually gone to the Muskoka Lake Country Community Legal Clinic, and they had helped me do contracts saying what I did and didn't want if I became incapacitated, and I did not want that. I didn't want to be in a hospital bed. I didn't want that for myself, but I definitely didn't want my kids and my grandchildren to come and visit me like that. So anyhow, I said no, and this oncologist, young whippersnapper, Dr. Chang, he said, "Well, I have an idea," and he suggested they had a new kind of radiation that I would kind of think of like a laser beam, that he thought if they hit those tumors with the radiation, that they might let go of my spine and maybe even shrink a bit to get me through past Christmas, so I didn't ruin my kids and my grandkids' Christmas. So he said, "Do you want to try it? We've never done it before. Do you want to try it?" And I said, "Well, sure. This other guy's telling me I'm going to be dead in a couple of days. Yeah, let's try it." Anyhow, it was potentially dangerous, but anyhow, it worked, and it got me through Christmas. It took a while for me to realize, and for them to realize, that it worked better than they suspected. Not only did it let go of my spine and shrink, it evaporated almost all of the cancer in my spine, except for like 3 little bruises, one near the top of my spine, one down near the middle, and one down my tailbone. They didn't radiate some other tumors that were in my bones and other places in my body, but anyhow, it was the spinal ones we were most concerned about because they were going to kill me. So anyhow, fast forward, I had busy years. It took me a while to get walking properly again, and actually, I ended up using a walker for over a year, and then got walking on my own again. And fast forward to 2018, I started having mobility problems again. I used crutches for a little while, and then they radiated because there were tumors in my hip and pelvis and sacrum. But, a few shots of radiation, and I was good to go again until the next year when they discovered soft tissue tumors. One was wrapped around I guess it was called a para-aorta, and my kidney, the one at the para-aorta, was a little over 7 centimeters by a little over 5 centimeters. I also had a goose-size lymph node, they call it. It was the size of a goose egg under my one underarm. Anyhow, at that point, they convinced me the best way to go was chemo. Unfortunately, it was very rough chemo they suggested. So, Easter Monday, 2019, I started 6 months of RCHOP, so that was 8 sessions. And then following that, they gave me Rituximab. I think it was every 6 weeks. It was supposed to be for 2 years, but I only had 18 months because of the hospital being full of COVID here, so I wasn't going in there. Anyhow, I made it through. I was like 100-year-old woman by the time the RCHOP was done. Then I seemed to get better until the Rituximab sunk in, but anyhow, it was a rough couple of years, and I went back to using the walker again until in this decade, a few years ago, of course, the chemo, I guess I forgot to say that, the chemo shrank those tumors, but it didn't get rid of them. It shrank them, I think, about half size. And, but, they weren't so dangerous. Anyhow, a couple of years ago, my grandson was pet sitting because he's an ambitious young bugger, and he wanted money for his technology things. So he was pet sitting and gave the whole family parasites. Yippee! So we went to the doctor in the walk-in clinic a few times, and he gave us mebendazole. And then finally, that first year, I had a friend that was aware of what was going on, who had been to Central America, and she had some ivermectin. So she gave us some of that to use, and not too long later, when I was in it, the oncologist, he was kind of seeming perturbed. My tumors were gone, so I was fine with that. Some people get spontaneous cures, I guess. Happens once in a while. Anyways, fast forward to the next year. My grandson got a dog of his own. And guess what happened? So once again, I tend to trust the doctors more, so we went to the walk-in clinic and got them a bendazole. And then, of course, I ended up using the ivermectin again. And fine. So this happened a few years in succession before it clicked into my brain that in between I had more tumors growing, because that's what follicular non-Hodgkin's lymphoma does. It just pops out tumors wherever it pleases once in a while, because I gather it's in your lymphatics, much like your bloodstream. So anyhow, and each time they they would disappear magically on their own, and then finally, over the last couple of years, I've been seeing this Dr. William Makeys from Edmonton had studies out, and he's been finding cures, and so he has a protocol out, which is kind of an elaborate form of what I had been taking. Anyhow, so that's what I think was working. But finally, just in the last month, I went to the doctor, and he told me, and he didn't seem overly happy about it, but anyhow, he's kind of a subdued person. And maybe he's still trying to figure it out, but I think I know. Anyways, he told me I was NED, which is no evidence of disease in my bones and no evidence of disease in my blood. So now, instead of having to go for biannual checkups, so every 6 months, he said, I can just maybe come next year and we'll check in. And the hospital here, the cancer center, does have a hotline that you can call in, and they'll get you message to your oncologist. But anyhow, so that's how I kick cancer. Of course, there's lots of nasty side effects to overcome, and some of them are also life-threatening, but anyhow, I'm sure I will find a way to overcome those, and I already have, to some degree, some of them. But anyhow, this has been long enough for this story, so maybe that'll be another story. Have a great day. Bye.